Hi, this is Karen. Today we're going to talk about interrogatives or questions, and this is part of a course at the University of Utah called Introduction to English Grammar. So let's get started. So interrogative clauses. Interrogatives are used to get information. Remember that a clause needs to have both a subject and a verb, okay, in order for it to be a clause. So there are 5 different types of questions that we have, or interrogatives that we have. We have WH questions, yes, no questions, tag questions, echo questions, and embedded questions. And I'm putting the information about embedded questions in the presentation about declaratives, okay, because they often look more like a declarative. Okay? So WH questions, well, how are they formed? Well, we form those by putting a WH word at the beginning of the sentence. So who is going to call, whom did you call, what did he want, or what does he want? The WH question word comes to the beginning, and if we want to ask about the subject of the sentence, then it just starts the sentence and we leave the word order as is in the declarative. So if the declarative was Sam eats beans and we want a question about Sam, then we just input who instead of Sam and we say who eats beans. Okay? For other word orders, if the WH question is asking about another part of the sentence, then here's how we form it, okay? So we add the WH at the beginning, and then we have an inversion between the auxiliary verb or the helper verb with the subject. If there's no helper, then we have to put in the verb do. So some form of do, either do, does, or did. And we put that in, and then the subject comes next. So in the sentence, I ate a whole cake last night, which, by the way, kind of sounds like me. I ate a whole cake last night. There's no helper. So we have to add do support. We add the question word, the do word, and then the subject and on. Okay? I have visited San Francisco 3 times. We're going to add in the WH word, how many, or how many in this case, or how many times. And then we did have a helper word, have, so we're going to use that have and we invert it with the subject. Hey, Sarah is studying biology for 3 hours. We have what is Sarah studying for 3 hours? And I may read the newspaper after taking a bath. What may I read after taking a bath? Okay. So here are WH question words. One question I have is it always the first word in the sentence? And why or why not? So let's think about how we might answer or ask a question that gets a certain response. So he was coloring the picture with a crayon. We would say something like, what was he coloring the picture with? Ooh, ending a sentence with a preposition. Ooh, maybe it should be, with what was he coloring? Okay, so there are some ways in which WH words may not be the first word in the sentence. Okay, and think about the types that we have. So we've looked at what and who. Okay, what kind of information are we looking for and where, when, why, and how? Well, we're looking for a place, a time, and an explanation. Okay, some of the interrogative words can also be used as determiners. So a determiner comes before the noun and gives us information about the noun, or gives us that specificity about the noun. So here, instead of saying what is that, I might say what book is that? So I'm trying to get to a specific book. What in this case is acting as a determiner as well. Okay. Yes, no questions. So yes, no questions we talked about a little bit if you've watched this series in verbs, when we talked about verbs. Okay, so yes, no questions. The answer is expected to be a yes or a no answer. We use an auxiliary, or we use do support, and the word order of the questions is auxiliary or helping verb, and then the subject. Okay, so we have a little bit of an inversion that goes there. So the helping verb inverts with the subject, and if there's no helping verb, we add do support. Tag questions. These are my favorite type of question. Okay, another type of interrogative clause is a tag question. Tags are when we add something to the end to make it a question. So here are 2 examples, and they can have different meaning depending on the intonation that we use when we're asking the question. Okay, So in English in general, we have kind of a rising intonation as we're asking a question. Tag questions can be a little bit different and a little bit the same. So I might say something like, you're a diplomat, aren't you? And that has the raising intonation at the end, okay? Or we might say something like, you're a diplomat, aren't you? Let me do that one again. You're a diplomat, aren't you? So I now have the rising and then the falling, okay? These carry a slightly different meaning, okay? The first one is what we call a true question. So when we have the rise at the end, that is what we consider a true question, meaning that I may not know the answer to that question, okay? However, anytime we use a tag question, whenever we use a tag question, we actually almost always have an idea of what the answer is going to be based on previous information. Okay. The second type is not a true question. It assumes that the listener is going to agree with the statement or that they should agree with the statement. Okay. So we might use it when arguing or showing off. So an example might be, I might say the second question when someone doesn't know where different countries are, and I am surprised because they're a diplomat, and so they should know where all the countries are. And so my kind of sarcastic response is like, but you're a diplomat, aren't you? And I'm kind of surprised or upset that they don't know where the other countries are, okay? So tag questions are formed in this way. So we have the helper verb. We use a helper verb, and if we don't have a helper verb, just like lots of things in English, we're going to use do support. So the first clause, the main clause, if it contains a helping verb, we're going to use that same verb. If it doesn't, then we add do. So John was working, wasn't he? Was is contained inside that first clause, and so we're going to echo it with that one on the tag, and we're going to do the opposite in negativity. So the tag question, the tag part should have a personal pronoun that agrees with the subject of the statement in person, number, and gender. So John, I'm going to make an assumption that he's male, so I'm going to use he, he's singular, and it's a third person, and so I'm going to agree with that by using he. Okay. In the second one, we don't have a helper verb, so we're going to use do support, but we still do the opposite in negativity, and we use he to agree with John. Okay. So the third point here is that if the other clause is affirmative, the tag is negative, and vice versa. So if the first clause is negative, then the tag must be positive. Okay, so we're going to do a little practice. Okay, so Jan wrote you a letter. No helper verb, so we're going to add do support. So Jan wrote you a letter, didn't she? And I'm going to make an assumption there that Jan is a woman, so I'm going to add she. Your children play the piano, don't they? So your children is plural. No helper verb, so we're going to add don't. That nurse doesn't have any experience. We do have a helper verb do, so we're going to add the tag with do. There's something for me, though, that's kind of awkward in this one, and I say that nurse doesn't have any experience, does, and I'm not actually sure whether to say he or she here, because a nurse could be either male or female, and we don't know the gender, right? It isn't appropriate to use it, because a nurse is a person. We maybe could say they, but prescriptively that can be problematic, because they is plural and nurse is singular. So we have kind of a problem here with this particular one. So I'm going to skip it for just a minute. Okay. The equipment didn't function right, did it? You're very clever, aren't you? I can play the violin, can't I? She has seen this movie, hasn't she? Okay. So hold on to that piece about what was awkward about the third one, and we're going to come back to that in just a minute. Okay, so there's another kind of tag question that doesn't reverse the negativity. So here are some examples. Something like, you're insulted, are you? Or she left again, did she? So I can't I? You call yourself a writer, do you? All of these have the same negativity or positivity that the first clause has. Okay, these are used in specific instances. Usually it has some sort of specific emotional overtones or sarcasm. So these are not our primary sort of function of tag questions, but we can use a tag in this way to indicate specific things. Okay, let's look at these examples. So these are like that question that was a little bit awkward for me to determine the tag. This is the same kind of thing. So here we have some tag questions that don't follow the rules exactly. Everyone is coming, aren't they? Someone let the cat out, didn't they? The baby is cute, isn't it? There are some left, aren't there? So we have some things going on here that are not 100% sure in the grammar. Okay, if we look at the first one, everyone is coming, aren't they? Everyone is grammatically singular. So we know that because it takes is, and this is something we've seen before. So in everyone being singular, then we would expect the tag to be singular pronoun as well, but we don't know whether it's he, she, and in English we don't have a gender neutral pronoun, or we kind of do have one that some people use, z, but it's not super well used. So everyone is coming everyone is coming isn't he or she, would be also equally awkward, in fact more awkward, right? Now, there are some places as the grammar's changing in English. The Washington Post, for example, accepts they as singular, and that's totally fine there. So for our purposes in this class, I will also accept they as singular when you use that. So the nurse question, we could have used they. Something like everyone is coming, aren't they, is now starting to be prescriptively okay as well. But the original prescriptivist would not really agree with that, and there still is some disagreement right now over that. The baby is cute, isn't it? We have an issue here where we don't know the gender of the baby. It might sound odd to you to say the baby is cute, isn't they, or aren't they? The baby is cute, aren't they? Maybe I'm okay with that, at least in terms of what we talked about above. But when we say it often means non-human and like an object, and so that could be awkward as well. Okay, so you see we have a few things that are a little bit awkward with tags, where your mental grammar may not agree with prescriptive grammar because of some things that people just do all the time. Okay, let's talk about echo questions. So echo questions have the same word order as declaratives, but they're used to express surprise or ask for clarification. Okay, so here's a conversation. Person A says, I know that I previously couldn't handle the idea of getting my teeth cleaned, but I have an appointment this afternoon. B says, you're going to the dentist? Okay, yes, no question, probably not looking for an actual answer, more just expressing surprise. I thought that would never happen. A says, yeah, I made an appointment with Dr. You made an appointment with whom? Dr. Jones. He gives you sedation so you can't remember a thing. So there are two types of echo questions. There's a yes-no echo and a WH. Okay. When I like to talk about echo questions, my favorite example is to talk about your grades or your grades on an exam, right? So declarative statement of you got an A on the test. So I might see someone and be like, hey, you got an A on the test. Or I could ask it as an echo question where I say something like, you got an A on the test? You can see that that's kind of a surprise from me, right? And it could either mean that I'm surprised that you got an A or I'm surprised that you got an A, depending on how I do my intonation. Okay, so interrogatives. We have 5 different types. Remember that embedded questions I'm going to talk about in the declarative presentation. Okay, and these have different looks. Okay. So how do we put these in terms of word order? If you want to stop the video, you can, so that you can think about the word order. Okay, next slide, I'm going to show you the word order. So here it comes. Okay, here's what our word order looks like for questions. And each question type has a different one. Remember that when we don't have helping verbs, we need do support, just like other things in English.